A big welcome to Erin McKittrick. Erin is a writer and analyst based in Seldovia, Alaska, a village just beyond the end of the road system. I live off a dirt road myself, so I have a little idea what that's like. She is a director and founding member of Ground Truth Alaska and has been working on Alaska environmental issues since 2005, beginning with the Pebble Mine. Her current focus is on renewable energy, yes, and a clean energy transition for Alaska. She is a director of the Homer Electric Association and on the board of the Renewable Energy Alaska Project. Thanks for being here, Erin.
You're welcome. My little part of Alaska is on Dena'ina and Aluptic lands. I want to start with an introduction to Alaska. Alaska is a very big place with not very many people. We have less than 1% of the population of the country on over a sixth of the land area. And so if you put that in the context of the lower 48, people living at opposite ends of Alaska are as far apart physically as people on opposite coasts of the lower 48. And if you look at all those Midwestern states there outlined under the bulk of Alaska, imagine all the infrastructure that's there. This is our infrastructure. Those yellow lines are the only highways Alaska has. Alaska is this string of communities, some medium, some small, connected by networks of boats and small airplanes and snow machine trails. And so many of these small communities, many of them indigenous communities, have to do everything themselves. They have their own little airports, their own little road grids, their own power grids. Even our capital city, Juneau, you can't drive there. And the place I live, Seldovia, if I want to leave town, I have to get on a water taxi for 40 minutes to get to a place where the roads go. And that's not very remote by Alaska standards. And all of that, those challenges make us very resilient and innovative people up here. But it's easy to take that and think, oh, you guys are just kind of the middle of nowhere. Why should we care? Well, we're actually at the middle of everything. So those red lines are ship traffic, and Alaska is in the middle of the Great Circle shipping route between North America and Asia. If you looked at airplane traffic, it would look similar. And as the sea ice melts, there are more and more shipping routes opening up heading north from here. We have a huge portion of all of the US's ocean, more than a quarter of the water. And what goes with that is most of the fish. Most of the fish caught are here, and that's commercial fish. There's also plenty of fish people catch and eat locally. We have a third of the coastline and a third of the federal lands. Wherever you're listening to this from, you own more than half of the state of Alaska. And Alaska is also central in climate change. We have a history as an oil state. Oil used to provide a huge part of our state government funds, now a pretty small part. But the oil that's flowing down the Trans-Alaska Pipeline is still producing a lot of carbon emissions. And we are the most susceptible to those emissions. Alaska, being in the north, is warming faster than the rest of the country. We have billions of dollars of infrastructure built on thawing permafrost that needs to be shored up or moved. We have fires, we have coastal erosion, and we have new emerging threats that people aren't ready for. Thawing mountains are becoming at risk of producing really big landslides that can lead to devastating tsunamis. And we're only just beginning to understand where and how that hazard is going to be going forwards. There's pollutants that have been locked in glaciers for decades that are now melting out and can contaminate ecosystems and humans. And there's entire towns that are at risk of being washed away. These are Americans and American towns. And we've taken a reactive approach in the past. FEMA can come in and can clean up after disasters, but communities need support to move ahead of disasters, to adapt and relocate if they need to before they get washed away. And it's not just the people that need that help. Climate change leads to species extinctions, and species also need to move as conditions change. They can't all do that on their own. So we need traditional land conservation strategies and connectivity so species can move. And we also need to pursue more active strategies when they can't, including relocating species and pilot projects to figure out how we can actively direct the inevitable changes that are coming. And the oceans are at least as important as what's going on land. They're under threat from all of the same warming that the land is, but additionally by ocean acidification and illegal fishing. And it's not just the species that live in the land and the water that we're protecting here. We are the stewards of carbon itself, of the carbon that's locked up in our lands. Alaska forests, Alaska peatlands, Alaska permafrost holds huge amounts of carbon that would be disastrous if they're released into the atmosphere. Some things we need to do to stop that are simple. We need to not cut down those forests by doing things like restoring the roadless rule in the Tongass. Other things are not so simple. We need to research landscape scale strategies for what we can maybe do to save the carbon in the permafrost. And we need to recognize that those carbon sinks are resources along with the other resources. Mining is something that comes up a lot in the context of our clean energy future, of the metals we need for things like batteries. But that can't come at the expense of the carbon sinks that are there already. We need to take both into account. And then there's the fossil fuel industry. I said earlier that Alaska was an oil state. We used to get most of the money that ran our state government from the oil industry, but that's shrunk and shrunk over the years and is now some parts of it are even negative. The oil industry is already dying, and we cannot afford for the climate to burn all the oil and gas we've already found, much less develop anything new. But in that, we need to recognize the human and economic cost of the dependence we have on the oil industry and provide support for communities to transition away. We can do it. We move past the fur trade, we move past the gold rush. Alaska will move past the oil era fine as well. And we'll move into a new energy future. Alaska is ready for the new energy future. We have both some of the highest energy costs in the nation, but also some of the most innovative grids. We have some 100% renewable microgrids already, and we need support for the technologies that work here, including wind, including low impact hydroelectricity, including energy storage at all scales, from short acting batteries to long-term pumped hydro. And we need to recognize that a lot of our energy is heat, and we need to make those buildings efficient and heat them with beneficial electrification. All of this means that instead of paying for fuel, we need to pay people to run these smart grids, to renovate these buildings, and they need workforce training and technical assistance. And money. So much of this will pay for itself if we had the financing that would work for homeowners, for villages, for communities that don't have access to it now. And in all of these topics, we need to partner with tribes and communities who know their places best. Thank you.